My name's Dr. Beedshaw. I'm a GP and I'm one of the directors of Medlighten Medical Education. This video is about delivering your diagnosis in medical exams in a way that helps you maximise your score. So, the first thing to think about is that you need to incorporate your ICE into the management, because by doing so, you're demonstrating to the examiner that you've heard and understood the patient's main concerns. How do you structure your diagnosis delivery? Well, think about, first of all, whether your diagnosis is the same as their ICE. If it is, great, explain why you agree with your patient and then move on to the management. But if your diagnosis is not the same as your patient's ideas and concerns, then you need to do a little bit more. So you would explain why you disagree with your patient, and by justifying your reasoning as to why you disagree with your patient, you're involving the patient and you're sharing your understanding, but you're also explaining your rationale to the examiner. So even if you're wrong, at least the examiner can see your thought process and you may be able to get some marks. Then chunk and check understanding, because it's not good to give a patient lots of information in one go. Then explain your diagnosis in a believable way, and then chunk and check understanding again. So if we go through a worked example, imagine that you've seen Mrs. Smith who's got a headache. Mrs. Smith's concern was that her headache is due to a brain tumour, but from speaking to her, you believe that her headache is a tension headache. So how would you deliver your diagnosis? Mrs. Smith, from what you've told me, I know you were concerned about a brain tumour, but I don't think it's anything as serious as that. And the reason I say that is because your examination was entirely normal. You haven't got any worrying symptoms. For example, you've not got any visual changes with your headache. It's not worse on lying down, and you're not vomiting with it. Does that make sense so far? Now, from what you've told me, I think that this fits far more with a stress-related headache. And the reason I say that is because the tightness that you described across your forehead, that's actually very typical of a stress-related headache. But also, you said the symptoms started around the time things became more stressful at work. So can you see why we think that it's more likely to be stress-related? Should we talk about what we can do in terms of treatment? So what we've done there, as I've explained, is explained why we disagree with the patient, chunked and checked understanding, explain the diagnosis in a believable way. And one way to sound really believable is to say, this symptom is very typical of this diagnosis, and then chunking and checking again. So that's how you deliver your diagnosis in a way that helps maximise your marks.